I'm talking about the fact that we're going live. So meta.
Love it.
Oh, that's annoying though. That stuff didn't go in the description.
It's all right. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
What's up? What's up, everyone?
Hey, everybody.
We are live. We're live with Swan again. We had so much fun on Tuesday. We're doing this thing again.
And we had every day come in as well.
I think we may do it every Friday. What do you think? I think we should. Oh, I gotta scoot over here. Yeah, I think we should do it every Friday. So I'm really digging these Swan Lounge things that we kicked off. And if you guys don't know about this, we're calling it Swan Lounge. It's a private meetup. We talk Bitcoin, talk Swan, whatever else comes up. Corey and I started doing it last Friday, and we each ran one about an hour long. There are 7 slots, and then 8, including me or Corey. And we had a blast. We had an amazing time. We had a new coiner. We had a couple that were like pretty much new coiners, just a few months in, and we had old OGs that were grizzled veterans hanging out, and we had a great time. No one wanted to stop it. We were all laughing. It was a great time. So we're going to be running those every Friday, these private meetups, and some of the other Swan team folks are going to jump in as well. Brecky's going to run one. I think Reed's going to jump in the game. Brandon Quidham started one. So we will create a page that has a list of all of these meetups. For now, just watch our Twitter feeds, and in our Telegram room, we'll announce all of them there. It's t.me/swansignal. And so those have been a ton of fun, Swan Lounge. And I think those are going to have huge potential. So our plan is to kind of move people from our, new Swan members coming in, invite them to come join one of these meetups and have Bitcoiners come in as well and just hang out and have fun. So check that out. Swan Lounge. It's going to be awesome.
100%. I playing around with these captions here. If you'd like, there's definitely a few spots open. Shoot us a DM for now. We'll get you the link, and we have some fun this afternoon. So, all right, I'm going to switch up the view. Gents,
before we get into some of the other things we're going to talk about, we actually have a question from Daniel in Periscope, which is, when is daily stacking going live? And that should be happening end of September, when Jan is not in a debate or a discussion with Eric Townsend. He's hard at work building that out. So, end of September.
Nice.
You should know, everyone. Don't tag Jan, but tag us, and we will forward to Jan. We've been every time someone's wants the daily buys, we send it to Jan. So Jan. So he's working on it.
He's on it, man. He's on it. It's coming along. And swanbitcoin.com/dailybuys. Get in the group. We have over 1,000 people signed up. We were going to cap it at 1,000, but I'm not sure that we can do that to you. So just go sign up. I'm sure we'll get you in the beta.
So gents, let's we got some interesting stuff on the docket today. I'm not sure which one we should start with first.
Let's do Jan.
You pick it. Okay, let's go. Let's go, man. Let's go. All right. So give a little shout out in the chat if you watched Swan Signal Live 27 this week on Wednesday with Eric Townsend from Macro Voices and Jan Pritzker, a co-founder, CTO, also author of Inventing Bitcoin. Great book. Give us a little shout out if you watched it. Give us your take. We'll put it up on the screen. Reed wanted to get this one on the agenda for today because he has some hot takes, and I think a lot of us were kind of champing at the bit to get in there and kind of retort to Eric. I think Jan did a great job, but we gotta get this stuff off our chest. So take it, Reed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of Eric's concerns.
Reed, take us away.
I think a lot of Eric's concerns with Bitcoin, pretty common concerns for people. Especially when they're first learning about it. And so I wasn't really surprised that he brought up the idea that government would try and kill Bitcoin, or that government would try and replace it with something else. My sort of main confusion with a lot of his arguments was that it didn't seem like, I'm of the opinion that ultimately decisions will come down to the individual level, and whether people will individually opt into Bitcoin or opt into a central bank digital currency or opt to continue using fiat. And if you look at the world from this sort of macro lens or government run lens, you miss that ultimately all decisions happen at this individual level, and people individually be incentivized to opt into Bitcoin because it stores value better and allows them to get around capital controls. So even if a government is pushing its citizens to use a central bank digital currency, it's not really in the citizens' interests. So ultimately, the citizens themselves are just going to choose to use Bitcoin. And that was sort of my like the one thing I wish I'd brought up with Eric.
Yeah.
It's an interesting point. The one thing I'll say, though, is that humans don't always know what's in their best interest. So I think in the long term, you're 100% right, Reed. But I think, as history shows, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes education. So that's why we're doing what we're doing here. But
yeah,
we'll see.
You're right. Maybe that the education isn't out there enough for everyone to opt into Bitcoin immediately. That's sort of why Jan was saying that he expects it to take between 20 and 50 years. That was actually, I was surprised.
Yeah,
bearish, Jan.
This timeline to be more like 15 years in sort of my mind.
Jan's been talking about this for a while, and he is more conservative, I think, than a lot of the Bitcoiners probably watching now or watch the show. But yeah, I think he's always talked about this. I know he did the earliest I heard him talk about it was on the Citizen Bitcoin episode we did like last December, I think. And I was a little surprised then too, but I think it's certainly a possible outcome. It depends, I think, a lot on how governments act, right? Like what decisions they make. Because if they, continue to try to push these sort of Orwellian, currency ideas, monetary ideas down our throats, then I think, people will turn to Bitcoin a lot faster, following their own self-interest, as Reed was talking about. The other point that Corey was making in all caps in our Slack chat during the show is that, we've got to talk about the game theory and jurisdictional arbitrage, right? And, even if the United States came down hard on Bitcoin, it doesn't, there's, 200 other nations around the world, and those jurisdictions would be incentivized by game theory to, in their best interest, to accept Bitcoin, right? To embrace it, to in fact put their country on a Bitcoin standard and, call Bitcoin or say, put it out there and say, hey, come to our country, start your businesses, et cetera. So then, you incentivize, let's just put it bluntly, like some of the best minds in the world who have been, attracted to Bitcoin by this strong gravity of the cause that this represents and the change that it can manifest in profound change for the future of humanity. It incentivizes the best people to come and work on it, right? And not to mention number go up. That's also a great incentive. So these countries will adopt Bitcoin, and people will move out of the United States and start, move their businesses there, despite the fact that, you might break up families or whatever. That's I think you could even overcome that desire, which is a really strong one, for at least some Bitcoiners to move out of the United States and to other countries to run their Bitcoin businesses.
I think he's falling into sort of this fallacy where he doesn't totally understand every aspect of Bitcoin, and so he underestimates Bitcoin's ability to kind of transcend these limitations that are put on it by governments and organizations. And this reminds me of Marty's Bent yesterday. It was a really good one. It got me fired up. Folks at home, if you don't know Marty's Bent, you should definitely sign up. Get bent, martysbent.com. Probably my favorite newsletter after our own newsletter. She was talking about the FATF, FATF, which is this organization that seeks to limit how people send money around the world. And the thing with Bitcoin is, and to tie it back into Eric, if you, made it illegal, black markets would pop up. You look at countries like Venezuela, look at like countries all over the world. You can't really tell people not to do things because they're going to find a way. They're going to find a way to do it. And Bitcoin nature, represents this to such a level. Like Bitcoin finds a way. You can't shut Bitcoin down. People have tried and failed. So they're trying, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry. That Bent that Marty wrote brought up a really good point that I do expect governments will seek to tax or sort of trying to control mining a little bit more, and they'll probably go after some of the most centralized mining locations, places that are grid powered. But you can also mine Bitcoin really decentralized, and those are going to be nearly impossible to go after. And so I expect in a lot of ways, sort of these small boutique mining firms and locations will be able to easily get around taxes, easily get around FAFTA rules, easily get around sort of any restrictions the government tries to put on. So people putting a miner directly on their own land, on their own like small oil and gas patch, it's going to be very hard for FAFTA or U.S. government to tax those. Whereas
absolutely.
Comparatively easier for them to tax someone, running a giant institution, grid powered.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Yeah, I mean, those kinds of actions, like we were just talking about, will just incentivize Bitcoin to get stronger. This thing's anti-fragile, right? You attack, if mining is a point of weakness for Bitcoin because it's relatively centralized or whatever, attack it, please. Do it. Like, it'll make Bitcoin better and much stronger. And that's, when I kind of made that connection, right, the anti-fragility connection, and understood that argument, then that was one of the things that really sealed the deal for me, right? This thing's just going to get better and better. Everything is good for Bitcoin, right? So I mean, let's bring that on. I hope that we get some kind of attack on mining centralization. Plus, I would love to see, one of the kind of visions I've always had is, I'm a big believer in solar. That technology is like, we're reaching the asymptote of the S-curve there, just the elbow of it right now, but it's going to get, just more and more efficient and better. And, there's tons of it that hits the planet, obviously, at any given moment. So we should be capturing more of it. Just imagine having, your solar panels on your roof. You've got a battery that you're charging up on your wall in your garage. And right inside that device, or right next to it, you have a miner, some miners that are running, right? And maybe it's a tiny, tiny percentage of the total hash rate, right? But, it's worth getting some skin in the game on that front. You might make a little bit, join a pool, right? We have protocols like BetterHash coming out that will allow individual miners in pools to have, an actual say. Like, if my individual mining computer was the one that discovered the block, for the solution for that block, then I actually get to fill the block template with the transactions that I want, right? That's one of the criticisms of mining right now, that it kind of centralized because of pools. So all of that stuff is just going to get better and better. And I absolutely see, obviously huge industrial implementations, mining implementations in the future, but I also see it becoming more distributed. And, we can band together with our fellow Bitcoin brethren and create pools and be a part of that process.
While we're on the topic, it reminds me of, I always love seeing the stories of people like in Russia and like, the Arctic, who are using Bitcoin miners to heat their homes. And this has always been a dream of mine to do this. So kind of a random thing to bring up. But, I'm here in Colorado now where it's cold. All I can think about is using miners to heat the house. But
I'm personally bearish on solar panel mining on your house unless the government cracks down really hard on centralized exchanges. I
mean, yeah, like I get it that you're not gonna, like, it's not gonna make sense from a monetary perspective, most likely, right? But there will be people who, like, we want to run full nodes to be, full sovereign citizens of Bitcoin. You might as well get in the hashing game as well. So I think there will be people there, and yeah, I don't know. Who knows what'll happen? But
Breck, can we take this question from Robin on Periscope?
Yes, we can.
The cost of mining Bitcoin. Good question.
That is a good question.
Brady, you want to take it?
You're looking at me? I'm a mining expert.
I don't know right now what it is, but I do know that it tends to.
It's less than the current price.
Yeah,
it tends to the current price. I mean, there's some people like Preston Pish who think that the cost of Bitcoin is actually set by the mining cost. So that the price, sort of miners set the price, and so I'm more of the opinion that price sort of dictates the mining, and so the current cost of mining a Bitcoin will gravitate toward the existing price of Bitcoin. And so like right now, the price is, I think, 10,200. And so the current cost of mining a Bitcoin is about 10,200. Some weeks it may be a little bit lower. And when it's lower, people add more hash to the network. And some weeks it may be a little bit higher. And when it's higher than the existing price that you can sell Bitcoin for, hash power will drop off the network. So you can always sort of look at the current price and and then look at whether hash is increasing or decreasing to get a sense of what the current cost of mining a Bitcoin is.
Yeah, average cost. Of course, it depends on how much your electricity costs. I mean, that's the big variable in mining Bitcoin. So that's the cool thing about it too, because it incentivizes, a race to the cheapest electricity. And so, like Great American Mining is doing, Marty Bent works for, they're catching flared gas that would otherwise be just released and wasted into the atmosphere, not just wasted energy, but also contributing to CO2 levels in the atmosphere, et cetera. And you have very cheap, that's almost like free energy. So Bitcoin's going after that really cheap energy, and that's the game, right? You want to get your costs down to mine that Bitcoin, and the only way that everybody's paying basically the same capex or capital expenditure for their equipment, but the big variable is the cost of the electricity. So I found a Forbes article that just cites a miner from earlier this year, just as an example. So the components of the cost are the difficulty, the mining difficulty, then the cost of electricity, as we said, and then the capital expenditure, as I mentioned. So in this particular example, you have the current difficulty in January of this year, whatever it was, plus 4 cents a kilowatt hour, wherever this miner was located, plus the S9s, the cost of the S9s, the mining computers that they're using, put the cost of Bitcoin for that particular miner at $8,206.64, which was made it just profitable, right? The price of Bitcoin was around 9,000 then. So at that point, it was profitable for that miner to be mining. So it's all self-selected. If you're not profitable, you're going off the network. So usually mining cost stays pretty close to the actual price of Bitcoin, just below it.
And while we're on the topic, I'm just going to share some personal experience and warnings. If you're interested in getting into mining, do your research. It's a business. It's not a hobby, especially now. Stay away from cloud mining. Stay far away from cloud mining, which is generally a scam. I fell prey to that in my early shitcoiner days. So.
Oh, did you?
With those,
what was it, hackers.com or something? I was like, oh, I could pay a little bit for Tract and get some Bitcoin. That sounds good. I ended up getting some Bitcoin. I probably broke even, but it seemed like a Ponzi. Like stay away.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of DMs right now about investing in cloud mining. Seems like you send in Bitcoin and then they promise to send you back Bitcoin.
That's a red flag for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, mining is an industrial process right now. So,
a great way for people to start accumulating Bitcoin if they're interested. Maybe it's a quick time to talk about the Swan Force, huh? Swan
Good
Force is
segue,
our
Rick.
referral program. Go sign up. You can get paid to recruit.
Uh-oh, Ricky froze.
You guys don't like shilling.
You froze there for a second on the broadcast side. Right as you were getting to the crescendo there, getting paid to recruit new Bitcoiners.
We kind of got off topic. Let's we still have a bit more to talk about Eric, I think.
All right.
I froze?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
No. I think he's way behind now too.
All right, Brady, I'm gonna put you in control then.
Okay, sounds good. Rad Vladdy says that you exit scammed on us there, Brecky. So yeah, we were also okay. You're back.
Here.
You're back. Brecky exit scam. You called him out. Vladdy, and he came to his senses. That's how this strategically applied toxicity works in this space, right? You get called out, and you either make amends or you're out. We'll bring Brecky back into the fold.
The Let's take this question from Austin that just came in from YouTube, actually.
All right. Oh yeah, great one.
But is it going to be viable for individuals to run a single miner for non-KYC private accumulation, or will it stay in the small business realm from here on out? I think it's definitely viable for people to accumulate non-KYC Bitcoin by running your own miner. You need to make sure that you have relatively cheap electricity. Otherwise, you're going to lose money to accumulate that non-KYC Bitcoin.
And the one thing I'll say to that, though, is for some people, depending on your needs, it may cost you more than buying it. But if that's the only way you can get non-KYC Bitcoin, that is worth it to some people.
Yeah, but I mean, it's gonna, like we were talking about earlier.
Consideration on your own.
Like we were talking about earlier, it's going to be a tiny bit. I mean, if you're running a personal operation, like running one S9, is basically like playing the lottery. And even if you're in a pool and your pool gets the block, your portion of that payout is going to be super tiny. So if your goal is to get non-KYC Bitcoin, and you want to get it through mining, then you're going to need to, start a mining operation to get any meaningful amount. So Bitcoin ATMs, BISC, direct trade with other Bitcoiners.
HODL as well.
HODL. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are the best options. I mean, if you want to accumulate any, that's what I would suggest.
If you're really concerned about KYC, all of those options, you still give a little bit of information to the person you're making the trade with. They still know that you bought that Bitcoin from them. Whereas with mining, you can be even more under the radar, and then nobody knows necessarily that you accumulated that Bitcoin.
It's true.
But you also can't easily sort of buy or get $1,000 of Bitcoin from mining without putting in a lot of work. Whereas if you go into one of these other exchanges, you can.
Yeah. And just a quick note for anyone who's relatively new watching, the reason that Bitcoin made while you're mining is the best, the most non-KYC Bitcoin you can get is that the mining reward, the block reward, comes in a transaction called the Coinbase transaction at the part of the block. And you have basically that's the beginning of that Bitcoin's life on the blockchain, right? So there's no history, zero transaction history for it, which is why it's the most non-KYC Bitcoin you could possibly have. Even if you buy some from HODL or BISC or Bitcoin ATM, for instance, those Bitcoins have a history that you have procured. So they could come along with some knowledge of the history of those UTXOs, of those transaction outputs. So that's how that works.
Yeah. And people could potentially project knowledge or project this narrative or a story onto that history. The taint doesn't exist inherent in the Bitcoin, but you could project it onto it and use propaganda to say that this Bitcoin has some nasty history.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, gents, 10K.
Yes. Man, this has been a stalwart defense. I'm impressed. I salute everyone out there who's been buying up at 10K, and I think we dipped below it just very briefly, down to 9,800 or something. But other than that, it's been 10 days now, 11 days since we fell down to this range, and I love to see it, man. So 10K, keep it up, HODL strong.
You love cheap stats, so you love to see us defending 10K.
I love to see us defending 10K, man. You got to do it for Hodlanot,
We need more auto stackers, man. We need that baseline. We need those people constantly, that constant buy pressure.
Exactly. The HODL floor, man. And that's
American HODL does contribute with his smash buying, but we got to help him.
Regular recurring buys creates a constant buy pressure. So I really love, one of the many great things that I love about Swan and just DCA in general. But it's an important one. And as we add more and more, regular stackers, that's going to be a massive influence on the price of Bitcoin in the coming years. So we just need to encourage all of our new coiner friends as they come in over the next 18 months, because the number go up, to auto stack. Just that's what the message is going to be for this cycle.
So I have a question. There's a good question in the chat. Although I don't know that we can actually answer it. We can talk.
Real quick. Thank you, Jeff. 7 days, 18 hours, he says, since we went down to the 10K range. Appreciate that.
All right.
I can gladly answer this question in the general, which is that my Bitcoin is stored decentralized on nodes all over the world.
That's it. I mean, that's the answer.
Not in any physical location. So
yeah, but I get what you're asking.
Not on an exchange. That's where I store my Bitcoin. But I do love multi-sig solutions from guys like Unchained, and I'm a big fan of the folk over at CoinKite who make the cold card. Highly recommend them. Yeah, there you go. Wait, Reed, show us the back of the shirt. That's
there you go.
Don't let friends sell Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got a question from Corey Clipston, more specifically from his wifey. When Real Housewives of Bitcoin?
I mean, that's gonna happen at some point, right? There's gonna be like when Real Housewives of Bitcoin. There's gonna be, like Bitcoin billionaire mansions or citadels or whatever it's gonna be. People are gonna be like, I think fascinated with early holders of Bitcoin, right? Like that's gonna happen just because of the way humans gonna human.
I've got a question for the audience. Would you all be interested in seeing a show about citadels, like about Citadel tech, about how to build your citadel? I want to watch that show, so maybe we should make that show.
Brecky was pitching me on this show with a story of wanting to talk about how you need to build your turrets purposefully counterclockwise so that your striking arm with your sword can always strike downwards at anyone trying to come up your citadel.
Artist said, Austin Kelsey says so much yes. All right.
All right. Bitcoin Cribs is coming, man. Bitcoin Cribs.
Yeah, Bitcoin Cribs. You can 3D print different citadel models.
I like it. All right, we've got another question. Interesting one. Bitcoin is decentralized all over the world. Why do people have to pay taxes on it?
That's a good question. Because government.
I want to sell it, perhaps, which we don't encourage anyway. But
the governments consider the Bitcoin, like the individual who holds the private keys. If they live in your jurisdiction, the government's jurisdiction, they're gonna want taxes on the gains from that Bitcoin. Now, in the United States, which is where I'm familiar with the laws, like the Bitcoin is treated as a commodity. So it's taxed at short-term capital gains is taxed at your income tax rate, which is, somewhere between 25-35% usually. And then long-term capital gains, if you've held the Bitcoin for more than a year, is taxed at 15%. And this is, I think, an under-discussed or pointed out, massive pull on Bitcoin's usability. Like it's just, I don't want to spend Bitcoin because number's going to go up and I'm going to hold it for the long term. Right now it's a store of value, right? Eventually it'll become a medium of exchange. But I think another of the big issues is, you're paying at least 15% on every Bitcoin transaction. So that's tough. But hey, governments are incentivizing hodly. I'm okay with that.
Okay with that. And if you do want to spend your Bitcoin, highly recommend you get yourself a lightning strike, because you end up spending dirty fiat and you don't end up spending your Bitcoin, which is great. Before we move on, Rad Vladdy, our good friend, had another comment that I want to just pop on the screen because I think it's funny and good. MTV Citadel, you've seen my fridge, you've seen my turrets, you've seen my Citadel. Now you get on out of here.
That's good stuff, man. Satch, we talked about the Eric Townsend interview very first thing, I think. If not, it was the second thing. It was at the top of the episode. We talked about it for a good 15 minutes. So you can go back and check that out.
Yeah, the short of it is that we generally think he's a very smart guy, but he needs to do a little more research on Bitcoin.
He wrote an entire book on the subject a couple of years ago. So he's done his research, but he just doesn't get certain things. And we pointed out, kind of the two biggest, I think, at the top of the episode. So,
All right, we had one other big Arsenal. Let's talk Arsenal, folks. I'm excited about this one. So I'm going to give you a quick overview if you don't know it. Bitcoin Arsenal is a community resource from Swan that we've basically put together to help you fight the FUD and educate people and make you laugh. We have all the memes that you could possibly need. That's not true. We're going to be adding more. Eventually, we'll have all the memes. And we're featuring a lot of cool people. There's so much talent on Bitcoin Twitter, people like Self-Banked, and today we're going to be adding a page for RDBTC. And if you're a meme artist or an aspiring meme artist, we'd love to have you contribute. There's an email address on there. You can send it over your memes. We have a Telegram group. It's just we're building this really awesome community of people who love Bitcoin and love Bitcoin memes, and we're just having a lot of fun. So if anybody has any, Reed Brady, if you have any thoughts on this,
I want to talk about your vision for the future, Brecky. What when this thing is built out, what does it look like? Yeah.
Sure. So as of now, we basically have a lot of advice on how to make memes and the tools and resources you might need. Some of the memetic, like the theory behind memes, which is also important. And if you don't know what a meme is essentially an idea. And most people think of memes as those images with powerful way than is possible with something more long form. I forget who it was. I think it was Charles Dickens. He was like writing a letter to his friend once, and he said, I apologize for writing such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. And I think that really kind of encapsulates it because
Brecky, come back.
All right. Come on us again.
Brecky is in his parents' mountain citadel.
We're back, folks.
we need to get go for it, Brecky. You were talking. You're on the very nice Dickens allusion there, analogy, quote.
That's where we left off. Man, just as it's getting good. Blue screen of death. Just as it's getting good. I'm with you, folks. So let's see. The Charles Dickens letter. Basically, he was writing his friend, and he said that, apologies, I couldn't write a short letter. I only had time to write a long one. And I think that really gets to the heart of Brecky, please expense a better internet connection.
Your parents will appreciate that.
But basically, that kind of cuts the heart of what a meme is in my thinking, is that a meme can encapsulate a very difficult or complex idea in a very compact package, and they can be sometimes more effective than a long essay in getting a point across. So in terms of the future, you can go check out the Arsenal, see what we have there. But once we build it out, I'm seeing hundreds of pages from meme artists all over the world, like so many memes that you would never be able to look at them in your lifetime, but we'll organize them and put them into categories and make them easy to use and share, and we'll just have fun doing it. So as many of you as you want to participate, we'd love to have you. You can always DM me if you have questions, or just go to, one second, caption, where is it? Almost there. swanbitcoin.com/Arsenal.
Blam. All right. That's going to wrap it up for today's session. We'll do this again next Friday. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for bringing your questions. We're going to, really enjoy doing this every week. It's good for us too. I think good practice. We just have a lot of fun. So Reed is about to go onto a podcast. Reed, what podcast are you about to record?
Bit by Bit.
Bit by Bit.
Out of the UK. So.
All right. Have fun, man.
Thank you.
That's it. We're out. Take care.
Sorry, Marty.